Hello, everyone. It's Dean Tremblay here with my new venture called Hillbilly Harbinger. And before I get into introducing myself, what I'd like to do is just explain why it is that I decided to start Hillbilly Harbinger. I just think in this day and age with so much confusion, and it's kind of ironic we're using social media here, but, I think in this day and age with all the confusion on social media, it's a great venue to sit down and to be able to discuss items and topics that not just relate to my past expertise in the field of biology and hunting and wildlife management and stuff like that, but as you'll see when I explain a little bit of some of my background, I've got pretty extensive education and experience in quite a few different areas. And, really it's not about me just explaining my opinions, but I'm really hoping to make this an interactive platform where we can discuss back and forth on things. And, please feel free at any time as well to enter comments and I'll try to get them as quick as we can. But anyway, so a little bit of background on myself. First of all, I was born and raised in Vernon, British Columbia. I had a very typical upbringing, a family of four with a dog and a house, and went to high school and elementary school in Vernon, and then played like a typical Canadian kid. Played hockey. Was very sports enamored. My family was very outdoorsy. We did a lot of hunting, fishing. Most of our food came from the land, and that's something that stuck through to me to my post-secondary education. Where in Ontario, I went and did multiple years of schooling there to eventually graduate as a fisheries and wildlife biologist. And that's really where I started my career in business. Is I started my own environmental consulting firm and ran that for 10 to 15 years, conducting studies all over British Columbia, northwestern United States. And I had a very flourishing career from there. I had an opportunity. I was contacted by the Métis Nation of British Columbia, which is a provincial level Aboriginal government. They originally hired me on as their director of natural resources to get that done. But very rapidly, I moved my way up the executive scale and actually became the chief of operations for the organization. And we administered about $14 million a year. And that exposed me to a lot of things on a provincial, federal, and international level. The 10 years that I spent there, I was a negotiator on bilateral, trilateral, multilateral, and tripartite negotiations with government. I had the chance to sit on the United Nations as a Canadian delegate and traveled all over the world working on the Convention of Biological Diversity, and really opened my eyes to the world. And because growing up in a small town, it's very easy to get consumed that your world is this area or even just within Canada. But when you start traveling all over the world, it really opens your eyes as to what's out there. And to be honest with you, how gracious and lucky I am to live in Canada, because some of the countries I've been to that are either under a communist regime or third world countries, like we really have no idea what that's like until you physically go there and you see what living is like there and you talk to the people that are living there. So after my career with Métis Nation British Columbia as a business executive and getting to do some amazing things there, I actually went back into the environmental field and headed up a entire environmental division for a massive consulting company. And from there, I got to work on some pretty major files as well, too, including doing things like cumulative effects analysis, modeling. I also had a venture for 6 years on COSAWIC at the federal level, working on the terrestrial mammals file and the freshwater fisheries file. I got to work with some of the most amazing scientists in the world. And I actually just found out last night watching the news that one of the colleagues I worked with had passed away, and I had a lot of admiration for the individual, and it was a little bit sad to find that out. I then eventually retired from the biology field. I got tired of working in it for 20 plus years, and I had an opportunity with one of my best friends, might as well call him a brother, with Kent Mickey. We went into the TV filming industry. and we started our own hunting TV show. Boy, it would have been about 12 years ago almost, and we've been on television for 10 years. And my recent endeavor on that is I did decide to go back to post-secondary education again, and I'm now taking education as well at Yorkville University with the Toronto Film School towards my video production. So I've been very fortunate in my career to have a lot of experience and a lot of hands-on education as well as post-secondary education in many different areas. And that's why I decided to start Hillbilly Harbinger, because the one thing I noticed living here in Falkland this last year has been very difficult, as it has been on for most of Canada. But I mean, we've gone through forest fire evacuations. We've obviously had the COVID-19. We've had all kinds of wildlife issues that have been hitting us. There's political issues that are hitting us now, especially with what's happening in the Ukraine. And I go through social media and I find there is so much fear mongering out there. There's so much conspiracy out there. There's so much fake news out there that I really wanted to create a platform for us all to be able to talk. And if I can answer it, I will. But if I can't, the one thing I've learned with all my post-secondary education is I'm very good at researching into things. And I have a very extensive network of colleagues as well, too, that if I don't know the answers, I can definitely dig them up. So that's really why I started Hillbilly Harbinger, is just to give a platform. I plan on doing these types of sessions weekly and just to discuss topics. And if there's, a topic that's not coming up, then I'll just pick one myself and we'll discuss it. But what I'm really hoping is people will comment. I see some people are commenting already. I'd like to say hi to Karina and also to Dale, who's online. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me on my inaugural session with Hillbilly Harbinger. And if you guys have any topics that you would like to discuss or direct questions or like to know more about me and my background, please feel free just to type it out in the comments and I will address them as they come up. One of the things I do want to kind of kick off the discussion on right now, and I don't want to talk about the Freedom Convoy that's happening right now on, for and against and everything else. But the one thing I do want to discuss was our Prime Minister's response to the Freedom Convoy. And I'm going to speak to this more from the aspect of what a leader is. And what I saw in that video really disappointed me, because a leader is a person who's supposed to set by example, is supposed to not divide his populace. He's supposed to represent all voices of Canadians, whether it's for or against the topic. And I think what really disappointed me with Justin's response is he was more focused on trying to make the situation look bad. Whether it was or not, to me, really shouldn't have mattered, and he shouldn't have done that. Like that I was extremely disappointed. It kind of reminded me of a kid in a sandbox, like he wasn't getting his way, and so he was going to do everything to make everybody look bad. And I was really kind of disappointed in that, because I felt as a leader, regardless of, I know the big thing he keep pushing on was, it's a minority. The one thing I got to say about that is I don't care if it's a minority or not. I don't care if it's 50-50. I don't care if it's a majority. The reality is you have a group of Canadians who are upset about something. And as a Prime Minister, you have a responsibility, regardless of what your party's line is, regardless of what the federal government's line is, you have a responsibility to those people. And, even if you disagree with what those people are saying or what they represent, it does not matter. A good leader will sit down and talk with everybody and, help them to understand your position, help them to understand, and to address their concerns, listen to their concerns. And I think the whole shutting them out and shunning them, that to me, to be all honest, is a disgusting way to treat people regardless of who you are, especially if, and it definitely should not be the way a Prime Minister deals with people. And to me, that was my biggest disappointment. And I've got some other people that popped online that I'd like to say Hi to Shelby, who's actually one of my classmates. Hey, Shelby, how you doing? Krista, I see you popped on. My good friend John is on board as well. And Krista, yeah, like again, like I was saying to you, like I know you're saying about the democratics of the industry should be noted. I think that the reality of it is what I'm addressing here right now again, and I don't know if you missed it, Krista, or not, but like I was saying, I'm not really addressing the convoy itself. I was addressing more of what Trudeau or how I think Trudeau should have responded. I'll be honest about it. Like, to me, what he did there is to divided the issue even more. He added fuel to the fire. He was dismissive, and that really disappoints me as a leader. I think if anything, these people have gone out of their way to show that they are dissatisfied with the way things are going in Canada right now. And as a leader, that's when you should step up to the plate the most. That's when you should, show people by leading them and saying that, okay, even though I don't agree, with your position, I'm still your leader and your ears are still mine. And he did not do that. And I think, to a certain extent, I'm not happy about the way that this protest is going on so long. But at the same time, people can't point to just the truckers for that. We also have to blame our prime minister, because our prime minister had an opportunity when people were asking for his voice, and he did not step up to the plate to do that. And that to me is a lack of leadership. And like I said, I was extremely disappointed, with that. I don't know, is there anybody else that, I noticed there's quite a few people that are saying they agree, with it. I mean, a part of the reason I don't want to deal with the Freedom Convoy right now is because it's a multitude of issues. I think, I think what is great is we live in a country we can do that. Like I know a lot of people right now are saying the convoy is about freedom, but the one thing we need to understand is if we were to do that type of convoy in North Korea, there'd be a very different outcome to how that convoy would be right now. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't have the convoy anymore. And I think that's the thing people need to understand is that, we do live in a free country. I know a lot of us, feel like some of our rights may be infringed upon or we're not happy with the way things are. But we also need to be respectful of the fact that, the fact that this is happening and, Canadians have the ability to use their voice is thankful. We can thank our country, Canada, all our past veterans who have fought for it, that we have the ability to protest like that. So I think that's the one thing that is really important to understand about the Freedom Convoy is, it is Canadians using our democracy and our right to be able to protest. Anyways, I think, again, for me, somebody was saying they'll help keep the issues focused today for my sanity. Yeah, because Dale, I agree with you. Like the reality of it is if you look at from the very beginning of the convoy to what it is right now, it's changed a lot. From what the original intent of the convoy was, it's changed a lot. And I think that just goes to show you a lot of the issues that are happening right now out there. It's kind of one of those things now that people feel like there's a venue to be able to vent some of their frustrations. And I do agree with you. And I think it's a great topic for us to dissect in the future on another topic for Hillbilly Harbinger. Really what I wanted to do tonight more was just introduce myself, give a little bit of background to everybody on who I am and, what my experience in education is. I've been very fortunate to travel the world all over the place. And as a result, got some firsthand knowledge of understanding what other countries are like. And, that does open your eyes a lot to make you understand what we really do have here in Canada. And that, again, that was my intention tonight, was more to talk about that. But I did have to address Justin Trudeau's response because it has been under my skin. I just think that I don't know, I'm a big one on leadership. I'm a big one on always taking the upper road. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should be listening more than you are talking. And I just found that he failed on that speech on many, many fronts. And I think if we are to look at why the situation ramped up and elevated, Justin Trudeau has to take some of that responsibility on, and I think Canada needs to realize that we need to put a lot of the blame on him as to why this situation has not diffused by now, and people are still upset, and they have a right to be upset. I mean, even though you did not vote Justin Trudeau in, at the same time, he's still our elected leader. And that means he's our voice for Canada. He works for us. He has a responsibility to us. And when I say us, that means everybody. People who are happy with the way the country's running right now, and the people who aren't happy with the way it's running. And especially something that has such a world, like the world peering down on us right now. I just think that it really showed no couth on his behalf on dealing with a group of people that are very upset about things. Now, the one thing I do also want to bring out for people, and I don't know if this will help. I really encourage people to go and look at the timeline of the Spanish flu in 1918. And I want you to look at the timeline in a few different ways. I've done some research on this, and it actually helped kind of calm me down a little bit when everything was happening in COVID, and I'm sure feeling the stress like everybody else. The reason I'm asking you to go and watch the timeline of the Spanish flu in 1918 is I want you to look at it from a couple aspects. One, look at it from the virus's life cycle. Okay, I was fortunate enough in university to take pathology, and I got to understand how viruses work and vaccines and inoculations and everything like that. But there is one thing to understand about an endemic virus that turns into a pandemic virus, such as the Spanish flu, is there's roughly a 2 to 3 year kind of life cycle, and you hear these terms waves. I really encourage people there's tons of research out there on it. Go and look at the Spanish flu timeline for the 3 years that it ran, starting in 1918. The next thing I'd like you to look at is look at the government's responses and the people's responses to that same pandemic over that same timeline. And I'm going to tell you something. I know everybody keeps talking about, COVID and blah, blah, blah. You're going to see some eerie similarities between the Spanish flu of 1918, following those parallel timelines, so A, how the virus ran, and B, how governments and people responded to what's happening right now with COVID-19, because it's almost identical. And I was actually listening to a researcher from one of the universities in Canada that was saying right now what happened with the Spanish flu is in the fourth wave, which is what we're in the middle of, or coming, in various places in and out of the fourth wave, that the same type of civil unrest happened, the same type of things were being put on to people that people got sick of. But the funny thing about it is the mutating virus of the Spanish flu lost its ability to connect to the lung or to infect the lung, essentially turning it into the influenza virus that we have today, which is, it can be fatal. I get that any sickness can be fatal, but the reality is, most of the time when people are sick, what did we used to say? Well, what do you have, a cold or a flu, right? And so coronavirus, they're figuring is going to be the same thing. If you look at Omicron, it affects more the upper part of the lung now. It's not as harsh as what the Delta and everything was, and they're figuring the same thing, is that it will totally detach from the lung system. And now what's going to happen, I would say 2-3 years from now when you're sick, is someone's going to say, hey, do you have the cold, the flu, or COVID? And that's going to be a reality. But the main reason I brought that up is not to kind of make people feel better about, when this is going to end, but it's more to understand that, this is not a new thing. And we've had this type of scenario. And the reason I want to use the Spanish flu is because it's basically the same type of pandemic. It was a lot more fatal, the Spanish flu. I think it was like over 50 million people died. But I think what I would like for you guys to look at is more, like I said, look at the life cycle of how it went through the 3 year span, but also look at how governments and people reacted. And what it did for me is I think it kind of calmed me down a little bit. Like it kind of made me realize like, okay, this isn't a new thing. The way government and people are reacting isn't a new thing. You know, when people got to this stage with Spanish flu, they were fed up. They were done. Masks, everything out the door. They just gave up in the fourth wave. But like I said, again, if you look at the viral thing, you know, that's when it totally detached from it. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of to bring that up, you know, for people, because I know for me, I'm an overthinker. If you talk to my wife, Denise, she'll tell you that. I overthink everything. But for me, seeing a parallel situation really helped me to not only see and calm myself down a little bit about the actual virus itself, but it also helped me to understand what us as society is going through right now, and also what governments and how governments responded as well too. And I think sometimes when you know that it's something that, you know, has happened in the past, you know, it just helps to kind of make you breathe a little bit easier and realize that, you know, this isn't a new scenario. Is there any other, what's that saying? That's been done. Omicron doesn't go to the lung. No, it doesn't. And that's one of the reasons why it's not as fatal. So that was Krista that brought it up, is it doesn't go into the lung. So if you look at, you know, the previous virus, like the strains, like the Delta strain and stuff like that, the reason it was so dangerous is because it did really infect the lungs and you know, put people on breathing machines and everything like that. But Omicron spreads faster, but it's not nearly as fatal, and it doesn't really affect the lung so much. And that's also why, but again, if you go to the Spanish flu, Krista, you'll see the same thing happen. And what was really interesting is it actually, in the fourth wave, it totally detached its capability from being able to do that. And that's why nowadays, when you get the flu, you mostly puke, you know, have a fever, you know, get the shakes, you know, get the colds, the hots, stuff like that. But it doesn't really affect the lungs anymore and kill like the 50 million people it did back in 1918. So anyways, I know I was only planning on trying to do a little bit tonight, but the engagement has been awesome. Is there any other questions out there? Actually, one of the things I'd like to ask everybody, because I notice there's still quite a few people logged on, is there specific topics you would like to see discussed in the future? And try to be careful not to make them too big a topics, because, you know, maybe we can dissect them down a little bit. But, you know, if there's topics that, you know, you're really interested in talking about, it would be awesome to either put them in the comments for this, or this will go up on the Hillbilly Harbinger page, or you can PM me directly as well too through the page. But I really would like to tackle stuff as well. The other thing too as well is guests. I have a fairly large network of people that I know or know people. And I could have the opportunity of bringing guests on board as well too. You know, so like if you want to hear from, for instance, a virologist, or if you want to, you know, if it's a wildlife issue, you know, I can get myself, besides being a professional biologist, but, you know, if it's on grizzly bears, I could bring in a grizzly biologist that I know, you know, or if it's on, you know, even just understanding how our legislative process in Canada works. I've got contacts there. I don't know if there's, you know, celebrities I'll kick out there. I have a lot of contacts in the celebrity world for hunting. So if there's people out there that really enjoy the hunting aspect, I can definitely pull strings on that one and have some talk. But I would really like to, you know, have you know, topics that you're interested in. I'll still keep doing them even if I don't have them. I'll just pick hot topics off the top of my head, or, you know, what I see happening on the news. I do know one of the ones I would like to talk about in the near future is what's happening in the Ukraine right now, and where that can potentially go, because I personally myself, I mean, I understand there's a lot of people doing the whole Freedom Convoy thing, but I think people need to be focusing a lot more on what's happening in the Ukraine, because that could be a massive fight for freedom. Because you know, right now, I don't know if anybody's heard, but it's kind of scary. Like, NATO is launching more forces over there. You know, Putin's saying that no one's listening to him. Nobody knows where the status of China's sitting in that, if something does go down. I think people need to really, like, I get it that this freedom fight for people is important in Canada right now, but I think this Ukraine situation has the potential of being something very, very scary. So I've had someone talk about deer communicate with each other. That's more what we call behavioral science for wildlife. I'll definitely mark that one down. Karina cracked a joke saying, "What does the fox say?" I'll tell you right now, I can't sing or play instruments, so I'd have to bring somebody in to help you with that one. How to proper harvest an animal step by step if survival depends on it. I can definitely do survival. I used to be a scout leader, but I also used to do competitive survival. I took the outdoor quest course as well too, so I do know a lot about survival. So I'd be more than happy to talk to people about how to make bow drills or flint knap arrowheads, how to do like snaring without the assistance of man-made stuff, like stuff that you can use that's on your body, shelter building. There's all kinds of stuff like that we can talk about as well. Somebody I noticed put on here PTSD treatment. I will say, and this to everybody, I'm very open. 2 years ago, I started suffering from various mental illness situations, and I'll definitely leave that for topics later on, especially from a man's perspective, because I grew up in the 80s where it's like, don't cry, don't show emotion, don't do this, don't do that, pretty much everything that is horrible for mental health. And then when all of a sudden you're endowed with a mental health issue, it makes it 3 times harder. So you're going to see a lot of talk about mental health on this. And I also have a couple really, really good friends who are going through this type of thing as well too, that we kind of lean on each other and talk to each other. So I'm definitely going to be doing stuff on mental health issues as well. Survival stuff from Dale. There's a lot of survival. Aerial spraying in cut blocks. Krista, that's a great one. Not only for me as a biologist and stuff like that, but there's a lot of aerial spray issues. It's affecting the East a lot more than the West, but that doesn't mean the West is not experiencing it. It's kind of unification of stands. It's basically for forestry purposes to grow better trees, but it doesn't take in the biodiversity aspect or the food forage aspect for species like ungulates and stuff like that. So that's a great topic that definitely, and I actually have a couple good friends that are research biologists and foresters that can speak to that topic as well too. So that's great. That's awesome. Well, anyways, everyone, we are approaching a half an hour. I really want to keep this one short. The upcoming Hillbilly Harbinger ones are going to be an hour because I would like to have some interaction, invite guests, and things like that. But for tonight, I just wanted to kind of introduce myself, who I am, get some people, seeing it. Please spread the word. Because the one thing I know about education is it's useless if it's only amongst a few people. But if we get a lot of people, watching and engaging, we can maybe all of us together work our way through some of these issues. And I don't know, sometimes sometimes it's just nice to know a little bit of deep breath. Oh my heavens, there's a name I haven't seen in a while. Good buddy from my post-secondary days. Hey Trevor, how's it going there, bud? Last time I think I saw Trevor, I had no gray hair. As a matter of fact, I had hair. That's probably a good one. And I was probably a lot leaner and in better shape. But anyways, Trevor, it's fantastic to see you joining on here, brother. That's awesome to see. So anyways, guys, that's it for tonight. I would like to say thank you very much for joining me on my inaugural one. And you guys all rock. Spread the word. And like I said, let's keep talking. Take care, everybody.